Okay. So, translation. The Lord's magnanimous pastimes and the glowing glances of his smiling face are all indications of his extensive benediction. One must therefore concentrate on his transcendental form of the Lord, as long as the mind can be fixed on him by meditation. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 12.5, it is said that the impersonalist undergoes a series of difficult programs on account of impersonal meditation, but the devotee, due to the Lord's personal service, progresses very easily. Impersonal meditation is therefore a source of suffering for the impersonalist. Here the devotee has an advantage over the impersonalist philosopher. The impersonalist is doubtful about the future personal features of the Lord, and therefore he always tries to meditate upon something which is not objective. Thus, here is an authentic statement in the Bhagavatam regarding the positive concentration of the mind on the factual form of the Lord. It is suggested herein that the meditative devotee should try to concentrate on the described form of the Lord as long as the mind can be fixed upon him. His smiling benediction on the devotee is said to be extensive, and what to speak of transcendental pastimes. To the neophyte, the great acharyas offer the same advantage by installing deities in the temple. The entire
paragraph is missing. Okay, go on.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on, I lost myself here. Deities in the temple. The neophytes can then come to the temples and directly concentrate upon the Lord by looking at his deity form, Archa Murti. This form of the Lord is equivalent to the described here by Srila Shukadeva Goswami, who actually realized the Lord after hearing it directly from his father, Srila Vyasadeva. Temple worship is not idol worship and is misconceived by less intelligent, because the deity is not a product of iconography. The deity in the temple is authentic because he's installed not according to imagination, but following the instructions of revealed scripture. Therefore, the iconolist should not try to banish temple worship and risk turning society towards atheism. Imitation worship, however, is not advantageous because it is a product of material imagination and is thus not equivalent to the meditation recommended here in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The process of meditation recommended herein is Bhakti Yoga, or the process of devotional service after one is liberated from the material condition. After one is liberated from the condition of material existence, when one is Nivrata, or previously stated herein, or one who is freed from all material necessities, one becomes qualified to discharge the process of Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, Bhakti Yoga includes Jnana, or in other words, the process of pure devotional service, simultaneously serves the purpose of Jnana Yoga. Liberation from material condition is automatically achieved by the gradual development of pure devotional service. These effects of Bhakti Yoga are called Anartha Nivriti. Things which are artificially inquired gradually disappear along in the process of Bhakti Yoga. Meditation on the lotus feet of the Personality of Godhead, the first processional step, must show its effect by Anartha Nivriti. The grossest type of Anartha which binds the conditioned soul in this material existence is sex desire, and this sex desire gradually develops in the union of the male and female. When the male and female are united, the sex desire is further aggravated by the accumulation of building, children, friends, relatives, and wealth. When all these things are acquired, the conditioned soul becomes overwhelmed by such entanglements, and the false sense of egoism or the sense of myself and mine become prominent, and the sex desire expands to various political, social, altruistic, philanthropic, and many other unwanted engagements, resembling the foam of the sea waves, which become very prominent at one time and at the next moment vanish as quickly as a cloud in the sky. The conditioned soul is encircled by such products of sex desire, and therefore Bhakti Yoga leads to gradual evaporation of sex desire, which is summarized in 3 headings, namely profit, adoration, and distinction. All conditioned souls are made after these different forms of sex desire, and one shall see for himself how much he has been freed from such material hankerings based primarily on sex desire. As a person feels his hunger satisfied after eating each morsel of foodstuff, he must similarly be able to see the degree to which he has been freed from sex life. Sex desire in its various forms is diminished by the process of Bhakti Yoga, because Bhakti Yoga automatically, by the grace of the Lord, effectively results in knowledge and renunciation, even if the devotee is not materially very well educated. Knowledge means knowing things as they are, and if by deliberation it is found that these things which are at all unnecessary, naturally the person who has acquired knowledge leaves aside such unwanted things. When the conditioned soul finds by culture of knowledge that material necessities are unwanted things, he becomes detached from such unwanted things. This stage of knowledge is called vairagya, or detachment from unwanted things. We have previously discussed that the transcendentalist is required to be self-sufficient and should not beg from the rich blind persons to fulfill the bare necessities of life. Shukadeva Goswami has suggested some alternatives for the bare necessities of life, namely the problem of eating, sleeping, and shelter. But one should not suggest any other alternative for sex satisfaction. One who has sex desire still with him should not at all try to accept the renounced order of life. For one who has not attained to this stage, there is no question of a renounced order of life. So by the gradual process of devotional service, under the guidance of a proper spiritual master, and following the principles of Bhagavatam, one must at least control the gross sex desire before one accepts the renounced order of life factually. So purification means free gradually from sex desire, and this is attained by meditation on the person of the Lord, as described herein, beginning from the feet. One should not try to go upwards artificially without seeing himself how much he has been released from sex desire. The smiling face of the Lord is the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and therefore there are many upstarts who at once try to begin with the 10th canto, especially with the 5 chapters which delineate the Rasa Leela of the Lord. This is certainly improper, but by such improper study or hearing of Bhagavatam, the material opportunists have played havoc by indulgence in sex life in the name of Bhagavatam. This vilification of Bhagavatam is rendered by the act of so-called devotees. One should be freed from all kinds of sex desire before he can try to make a show of recital of the Bhagavatam. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur clearly defines the import of the purification as cessation from sex indulgence. He says, Yata yata dhischa suddhyati vishaya lam patyam tejati tata tata dharyad iti chitta suddhi taratam yenaiva dhyana taratam yam ukta. As one gets free from intoxication of sex indulgence by purification of intelligence, one should step forward for the next meditation. In other words, the process of meditation on the different limbs of the transcendental body of the Lord should be enhanced in proportions to the progress of purification of the heart. The conclusion is that those who are still entrapped by sex indulgence should never progress to meditation above the feet of the Lord. Therefore, recital of Srimad Bhagavatam by them should be restricted to the first and second canto of the great literature. One must complete the purificative process by assimilating the contents of the first 9 cantos. Then one should admit into the realm of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Jnanatimrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranyutamena Tasmai Shigrive Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitamena Budale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Rangnatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savititam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vishamta He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinamanda Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vansha Kalpatarvesha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Buddhale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swamniti Namane Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Buddhale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamniti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashate Desitarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jnananandam Mayam Devam Nirmashpatika Kritim Adaram Sarva Vidyanam Hayagrivam Upasmahe Bhagishya Yasya Vadane Lakshmi Yasya Bhakshasi Yasyastra Hidaya Samvitam Nishrimam Aham Bhaje. So, specifically speaking on this subject of sex desire, now Prabhupada is emphasizing this a lot, because in order to attain a level of devotional service, we can see that Prabhupada is stating that actually there has to be a detachment, knowledge and detachment involved, and that detachment specifically is designated to sex desire. Because when you study the Bhagavatam, we see actually this is the root of the problem that the jiva undergoes. That this attachment to sex desire is so strong that it is the attachment that keeps him within this material world. That it is out of pretty much from sex desire, everything else is expanding. That is that is the lust that is there in its pure form in that sex desire. So Prabhupada is emphasizing that through this purport, because we see that here Shukadev Goswami is describing the beautiful face of the Lord. But Prabhupada is going through how there's actually a process by which one approaches the Lord. And so, to the extent he states that until one is devoid of sex desire, one shouldn't go past the first and second canto. Which for us, that would mean we would never read the Bhagavatam. But we also understand that by reading it, we become purified, so that the more we read the Bhagavatam and the more we see these pastimes, we see like Puranjana come in later down the line, in fourth canto and all this, that we are able to see different persons with similar desires and purify those desires. But so this sex desire is so strong in this world, it is the center of this civilization. Sex desire is the center of this civilization. Often we see people on the street, and they look like they've got pretty happy lives. What's Bhagavatam speaking about? That guy's pretty happy, he's with his girl. He's having a good time. What's the problem? Well, we can see that actually Lord Brahma, I don't know if, I guess it will take you a long time to bring it up. 3.9.6. Huh? You can do it quickly. Okay, 3.9.6. Brahma describes actually that how these people are feeling. That these people, although they're flaunting their sex desire, they have this beautiful woman next to them. Oh, there you go. Okay, so, oh my Lord, the people of this world are embarrassed by all material anxieties. They're always afraid. They always try to protect wealth, body, and friends. They are filled with lamentation and unlawful desires and paraphernalia. And they avariciously base their undertakings on the perishable concerns of mind. And as long as they do not take shelter of your safe lotus feet, they are full of such anxieties. Yeah, so bring it up. It's a very nice verse, because it's actually that this so-called happiness of this world, actually Brahma is saying here that they're actually suffering a lot in this world. There's so much suffering, but their only happiness is that there is a brief respite between the intense sufferings. There's a brief moment where it feels like amazing. Feel the feeling of amazing, and that is there due to the too intense suffering. And Lord Chaitanya, actually this is in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, it's called, in chapter 4, it's called the wise man's teachings, I believe. Those who've read through that. Lord Chaitanya describes in there that this word respite, you can get an idea of this word respite, is that there's some king or something, I can't remember the story exactly, but basically it takes him out into the ocean and he dunks him underwater, and then he pulls him up at the last moment when he's like feeling like he's passing out. So when that person comes up, he feels a great sense of pleasure, of relief, of being able to breathe. And so that is the pleasure of sex life in this material world. So it's just a small, you can say a few seconds of relief of the intense suffering that come before and after the pleasure, so-called pleasure. Because actually it's not real pleasure, it's just it's like saying, you like we're breathing right now, it's not pleasurable to just breathe. But when you're underwater and you're about to pass out and you come up, it seems very pleasurable. but it's just a cessation of that suffering that's there. So, and the pleasure is so small, just like you can say, how pleasurable is it to breathe in general? But one views that pleasure as some great pleasure because he's conditioned in that way. He's conditioned in that nature. So just like, different living entities are conditioned by different natures. Just like you see the dog, he's conditioned to a nature and the only thing he can do is really bark. Now, that barking is an indication of suffering, that he can't speak for himself and that he can't, control what's going on. And he's barking really loud, and to him, he's feeling like some great man. I'm very strong. I'm showing the person I am. Look how strong I am. Or different living entities that are under this covering. But in their mind, they're thinking that they're some great person. That dog is thinking, yes, look, I'm barking so loud, I'm going to scare everyone off. But it actually is a great level of suffering that the dog is undergoing, but he doesn't see that. He doesn't see that because of his ignorance. So sex life is also like this, that it is very prominently promoted throughout the whole society that you must have sex, or everything that you buy or is advertised it with is tinged or completely centered around this sex attraction. So everything is being promoted. Sometimes when I was in Australia, there was this advertisement that when I'd be distributing books in the middle of the mall, there would be a girl with she's basically completely naked, and she holds a water bottle over her breasts, and the label is on there so it doesn't show her breast, and it's an advertisement to drink water. It's spring water. I looked at that and I went, what does this have to do with anything? And as Guru Maharaj says, that it's like she's got her hair like flowing out just like a Rakshasi. She's the hair is not covered, and so you see the water bottle, or better example than a water bottle, you can say the Coca-Cola. They've got the Coca-Cola, and it's like a very beautiful call. I've actually named this lecture Water Bottle and Sex Desire. But how a water bottle relates to sex desire, you couldn't imagine it. How a water bottle can be sexually stimulating. That's the whole purpose of the water bottle. It's just sexually stimulated. Otherwise, water, you get it in your tap. Like, what's so amazing about it? But because that sex desire is so strong, if you invoke that lust comes out. And when that lust comes out, intense hankering develops. Oh, okay, if I get that Coca-Cola, there's this beautiful girl next to it. If I get that Coca-Cola, you associate the Coca-Cola with the girl who is very beautiful and is half naked, and she's the model of the, she's the, what do you call it, universe, Miss Universe. She's very beautiful. So you associate that water bottle with having that beautiful girl, and so you go to the store and you buy a Coca-Cola, and then you ask, where's my Rakshasi with her hair out, where I can have sex with, or where's that satisfaction that the advertisement promised me? Because if you open that water bottle and drink that water, the satisfaction that was imagined, the imagination that was created by that advertisement is not gained by the water bottle per se. Because, like I said, you drink water every day. But because that sex desire is invoked, that sex stimulation is there, they see that as the form of happiness. Yeah. So this perishable conception of mind, that it's perishable. As soon as you see, it's all in the mind, and then you go and you try to grab it, but it's not there. It's not there. It's not there. It's just a illusory form of happiness. And so they take this stimulation that it's, you see it in the mind and you imagine it. That's the nature of the mind. It starts to imagine all this pleasure. So it's like this pleasure is seen as a great form of happiness. And basically, like I was saying, that the society is completely based around this point of sex desire. But if it was so amazing, if it satisfied the genitalia even so much, then if you went to some place like a red light district, everyone should be dancing in joy and very blissful and ecstatic. What is it like if you go to a really low class part of town where you can get a lot of sex, like prostitutes, you know? You go to a place where you can get a lot of prostitutes. What is the place like?
Sewer. Dirty.
It's dirty, it's nasty. You go there, you feel like the scum of the earth. Some people don't, I guess it's shameless. So it's like, you know, this on the screen, because of the way that it is advertised, it seems satisfying. But if we go and try to practically experience, then it's disappointing. It's very disappointing. So actually, you know, and like I was saying, this red light district, you know, you see the prostitutes, you see the men, and it's very miserable. The energy is very low. You can feel it. It's just very low grade happiness, or so-called happiness. And so they take this to be some sort of great form of happiness, but actually Prahlad Maharaj said that this actually, it's insignificant. What is Maitinadi? What is this? That Grihedi Tucham. Yeah. So he said that this sex desire, this happiness of this sex desire is like a scratch. You have something, you know, you have some sort of itch on your hand, and you scratch that itch, and it seems satisfying, but actually you go on itching, and Prabhupada says blood comes out. So actually that sex that one experiences is not so much happiness. Actually that scratch creates a big hole and creates a lot of blood that comes out. But they don't know any happiness beyond that. There's no happiness beyond that sex desire. What is there? What is there in this world that's better than sex? Nothing. Sex life is compared to the rubbing of two hands. To relieve an itch, Grihamedis, so-called Grihastas, who have no spiritual knowledge, think that this itching is the greatest platform of happiness, although actually it is a source of distress. The Kripanas, the fools who are just the opposite of Brahmanas, are not satisfied by repeated sensual enjoyment. Those who are dhira, however, are sober, and who tolerate this itch are not subjected to the sufferings of fools and rascals. So this so-called satisfying this itch, so-called happiness, is actually a great form of suffering. So, just as one would go on itching, and he would cause, you know, one great number of suffering by that bleeding, and then if he keeps on suffering, he'll become infected, and then it will be cause of his death. So, people think that they can satisfy like this in different ways, whether licit or illicit. And, you know, you get married, or like in your mind, you have this happily ever after fairy tale story. You know, you're a prince and you go and kill a dragon, and then you rescue the princess, and then you go back to your kingdom, and then everything is happily ever after. But then nobody tells you that then she cheats on him and then runs away, and then there's a whole problem. Because it's based on sex desire, based on sex attraction. So this is generally in the world, you know, that people try to satisfy themselves like this. But, you know, you get married and you realize, oh, I'm not very happy actually, because it's based on sex desire. So actually, it's just the quality of sex is not so good. So then, you know, that's why so many people go to Thailand, because there's this euphoric idea of, or there's this idea of like this, you know, that I can go and enjoy my senses as much as possible. So you go to Thailand, and that's what Thailand is famous for, if you didn't know. It's the sex capital of the world, Bangkok, Thailand. It's Bangkok in Thailand, right? I get confused. And actually, Guru Maharaj spent a lot of time there preaching. So he was saying some of these things. A lot of practically this whole thing here that he's saying that people go to Thailand, and you go and you enjoy as many prostitutes as you can. You go and you try, you hire so many prostitutes, you go and then you're not satisfied still, you come back And then you try to find different prostitutes, and then you come back home again and you go, actually next time I'll try to enjoy better in different ways. But while they have a wife at home, they're married, they have a wife, but they're going away. Why is this? Why are they going? Why are they going to so far away simply for sex? There's a story given of prostitute called Hira Lekha. You might know this. Hira Lekha. Her name is Hira Lekha. One who her pain. No, this is different to liquid beauty. Hira Lekha, she's a prostitute and she's worth 1,000 diamonds, 100,000 diamonds. And so basically for her, she had so many kings line up to have sex with her. And she's very, very beautiful. She's very beautiful. And so there's this Brahmin who falls in love with her. And he's married, of course, Vedic culture. He's married to his wife. But he wants to enjoy with this girl. And he wants this prostitute, but he's a poor. Brahmana is generally naturally poor. He's a poor Brahmana. So to get 100,000 diamonds is practically impossible for him, he's not happy, he's very depressed, and his wife notices this. And she finds out that this is his desire. And generally in Vedic culture, the wife tries to satisfy her husband. And because the wife is very chaste. So she goes to this prostitute's house and starts cleaning after her. It's a trash. Obviously her house is like trash because she's a Shudrani and lower than a Shudrani. Her occupation is so abominable. The way she lives is also abominable. Anyway, she cleans up her whole house and makes it very nice and cooks for her, cleans for her. And along the way, the prostitute is asking, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And then she explains, my husband desires to enjoy with you. You please. She actually grants her whatever you want, I'll give you. And she says, yes, my husband desires you. And you please grant this desire to him. You have sex with him. And she says, okay. But I have a big waiting list, 120 days. It's a big waiting list. 120 days for a prostitute. As you can imagine, she's very famous. And they got to pay 100,000 diamonds. That's a big waiting list. So she said, you got to wait. And then the Brahmana finds out that he can do such things from his wife. And he's very happy. He's jumping for joy. Wow, great, amazing. So he's counting down his days, 119, 118, 117, such and such and such. And then what happens is the prostitute approaches him at one point and says, you know what, better than this, I can also have sex with you, but I can also cook very nice things. So in order to make your experience much better, let me cook for you. He's a poor Brahmana, so he's like, okay, great, she's going to cook for me. And she's going to cook very opulently because she's probably very rich. So she cooks for him. And there's two pots, a golden pot and an iron pot. She serves everything in the iron pot to this Brahmin. And then she takes the same items and then serves. He's very full already. She takes the iron pots and then serves it to him again. And says, what do you... Iron pots.
She takes the iron pots. You said she already takes the iron.
So the gold pots, she serves out in the gold pots first. And then she takes the same items and puts it in the iron pots and then serves that out. Same food again. And says, what are you doing? And it's the same thing. Why have you changed the pots? And then she goes on to explain to him that, you rascal, you're such a fool. You don't understand that the sex is the same. It's the same. It's like whether, the genitals are genitals. It doesn't make a difference. And the Brahmana, when he's chastised by this prostitute, he realizes, wow, it's true. It's all in my mind. It's all in my mind. I've created this imagination that it is some great thing. But actually at the core of it, it's just two genitals coming together. Like, what's the difference? Whether she's fat, whether she's skinny, or whatever. At the end of the day, that pleasure that you want, that you wanted to derive, is primarily just those two parts touching each other. So he realizes, oh, it's all in the mind. And that's the nature of sex desire, that it's all in the mind. The mind creates this great situation of hankering after that sex. So it's like one tries to enjoy this world in this way, but it's all imagined, because at the end of the day, how much sex desire can he derive from that activity anyways? How much desire, how much pleasure can he derive? So it's all situated in the mind of the person, that it's some great thing. And so there's also a story given by Prabhupada that there was this great actress who everybody desired so much. And she was getting a little older, so then everybody wanted to marry her. And so one guy, he was lucky enough to get married with her. And then he got married with this great film star. And everyone is envious of him, obviously. If you get a very good-looking girl, generally all the other guys very envious. Or the other way too, if a girl gets a very good-looking guy and a rich guy, the other women are generally very envious also. And so, he marries her, and then 2 weeks later he commits suicide. Because he realizes, I've been lusting after this person my whole life, and I got her, but it's not pleasurable at all. It's actually great suffering. So many demands, so many things are there that if he didn't have that money, if he didn't have that, if he didn't have that wealth, that she would never have even considered him. So these people, with their imagination, they're flying so far from Australia. Australia is a huge thing for that. I don't know how big of America it is, because it's so close. Thailand, Bali, they're like huge. It's like it's like $300 to get on a flight to go to Bali, and for a few $100 you can hire out a whole mansion, because it's really cheap over there. So everyone goes over there, but they go over there, but they're not satisfied at all. They try to indulge in this sex desire, but they're simply spoiling the human form of life. And if you really think about it, actually the monkey enjoys much better, in a much better way. Because, as a human being in this world, if you want to have sex desire, what do you need? If you want to have sex, what do you need? What are the requirements to have sex? Money. Money, wealth, fame, adoration. You need to have all these things. If you didn't have those things, what is the question of going to Thailand? Otherwise, I'm sure so many people from America would go. What's the destination they go to here? Mexico? Vegas? But Vegas is expensive. Vegas is expensive, really expensive. Cancun? Where is that? Is that Mexico? So Mexico. It's very cheap, so you go over there. Even then, you see a good amount of money. Or you need to have a great amount of wealth to get a very beautiful girl. Otherwise, how will you get a beautiful girl? You can get a beautiful girl, but as soon as she realizes you have no money in your pocket, all right, she's out. Because other men can promise her so much more money. So that requirement for sex within this world is filled with, just to get it is filled with so much anxiety. And what to speak of what happens after that? So, but whereas in the animal form of life, what's a monkey? Does he have money? No. He lives in the forest. He's a great renunciate. He just eats fruits. He lives very simply. Or the pigeon, the pigeon, look at, what the hell, a pigeon? He has, what is it? How many times? In a minute, how many times?
Not a minute. In a day, you can have more than 60 times.
And so it's like a pigeon, and he doesn't even have to endeavor. He just lives in a nest up there in that tree and eats whatever is given to him, and he doesn't have great cars or nothing like that. But he enjoys so greatly. Sex life is enjoyed so greatly by the animals. So it kind of gives an indication, generally when something is really, really difficult, and even when you do it, the pleasure or the happiness you get out of it is like so insignificant. It gives an indication that, hey, hang on a sec, maybe this is not what it's all about. Maybe it's not what it's all about. Like just like me trying to use my phone as a hammer. And I can hammer something in, but my phone keeps breaking. I keep buying a new one and say, damn, this phone is useless at hammering this thing. Maybe at some point, if I'm intelligent enough, I'll realize that it's not meant to do that. So the human form of life is not meant for running after this sex. As Prabhupada is prominently making that point here, that the human form of life is primarily for purification. Purification of this sex desire, because it is there from so many lifetimes, this material sex desire. So one is primarily meant to make use of his life to detach himself from this sex desire, because it causes one great anxiety in this world. It is the root cause of all our problems, actually. It is the root cause for the reason that we're here, and it is the only thing that will keep us in this material world. And it's the last thing, you could say, in some sense, the hardest thing generally even for us coming into devotional service, to give up. We've all experienced that. Meat eating, okay, it's pretty easy to give up. Just cook something else. Gambling, who gambles so much anyway? It's just there's very few people who are addicted to gambling. Intoxication, you experience the bliss of Krishna consciousness. And you're getting high and all this is actually very low. But sex, that desire remains prominent until almost the point of liberation. Because sex desire per se is not just, you could say, it's not just that attachment to trying to satisfy another, like trying to have the opposite sex, or anyways, more perverted in this age, the same sex. But the extension of that sex desire that's there manifests in different ways to cause us bondage, just like Prabhupada was making the point here, aggravated by the accumulation of building, children, friends, relatives, wealth, profit, adoration, sorry, I'm missing. Yeah, profit, adoration, and distinction. Actually, this is where the sex desire is the main problem. Because it's like, you can, sex, if you really think about it, you can do it with anyone and there's no problem. It's just the feeling that has to come. But it's just like I was saying, you could just go get a prostitute to have sex, but you don't want to do that. You want to be able to show off a very beautiful girl that you have with you. Or you want to show a very strong and rich man. Why? Because that nature of profit and adoration and distinction. That is the sex desire, actually. Because if you really, like I was saying, if you really think about it, you can just go have sex with anything and anyone. And it's fine. As long as you get the feeling, you're good to go. But those three things is what we have to overcome. So then that's why we see Lord Chaitanya in his Nathanam Najanam Sundarim Kavitava Jagadisha Kame Mama Janmani Janmeswari Bhavatad Bhakti Rahitu Kitwai. That oh my Lord, I do not want beautiful women. I do not want to be recognized. That I do not want adoration, profit, distinction, all these things. Because this is like where the root of sex desire lies. So Prabhupada is making the point through here that by the practice of bhakti yoga, that it should be seen that this sex desire is going away. It is going to take a long time, some good amount of time, or it can be instantaneous if we're surrendered enough. So this vairagya should be seen in devotional service, because we're coming to the level of attaching ourselves to Krishna, and that particularly, which means seeing Krishna as the here's the what is that word that Prabhupada uses in 6, the formula for peace. We're reading that he mentions this verse as formula for peace. Yeah. Yeah, so one sees the Lord as the person to be glorified in this world. He sees him as his supreme friend. He sees him as his benefactor. I think that's the word he uses. He sees him as his supreme friend. He sees him as benefactor. So Prabhupada states all these things. That one stops thinking this prophet in adoration towards himself, but starts thinking towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is what reading the Bhagavatam is meant to do. One is meant to redirect that me, myself, and I to center that around Krishna. And that's done by chanting his names, by reading the Bhagavatam, by associating it with devotees, by worshipping the deity, by observing the deity. That Prabhupada makes the main point here also, that by seeing this, actually that this sex desire can be, just by observing the deity from the feet up, this desire can be completely vanquished, the sex desire. And like Shukadev Goswami, like Prabhupada is saying, Shukadev Goswami doesn't recommend an alternative process for sex desire. You have to stop it. So that's all the time I have. So yeah, so reading the Bhagavatam, associated devotees, engaging in transcendental book distribution very intensely, that will help us a lot. That when we concentrate our mind upon the lotus feet of the Lord, it's actually in the third canto, Kapila Dev says that if one meditates upon the thunderbolt that is situated in the feet of the Lord, it will destroy all of one's mind, like one's hang-ups in his mind. It says that like the thunderbolt pierces through the mountains, just like that, the thunderbolt, by meditating upon the thunderbolt of the Lord on his feet, which is on his feet, one's mind's, all these different material coverings within the mind can be completely destroyed. So we can meditate upon the lotus feet of the Lord and different characteristics of his lotus feet and overcome the mind and overcome the sex indulgence and be situated in Krishna consciousness. Okay, Hare Krishna. I have to read a quote. You've already sent that to me before. Okay, yeah. Maybe we should print it out. Yeah. It is this Sankirtan which is the life and soul of our movement. The quotes from Srila Prabhupada presented here are in chronological order to give a little feel for the evolution of Sankirtan and preaching in our Krishna conscious movement. We can see how wonderfully Srila Prabhupada encourages devotees in these preaching efforts, going from street chanting and free pamphlet distribution to book printing and distribution as our most important activity. Hare Krishna. So we are up to...
You have to read...
10. Well, we Sankirtan and book distribution should go on together side by side. Please accept my blessings. I am in due receipt of your letter dated August 15th, along with the Sankirtan newsletter 19. And I thank you very much for it. You can continue sending me these newsletters as you publish them weekly. It is the Sankirtan which is the life and soul of our movement. Sankirtan and book distribution should go on together side by side. I'm always glad when the activities are increased, and my pleasure is always increasing. This letter was in response to the first Sankirtan newsletter sent to Srila Prabhupada. Letter to Shrutadev, September 8th, 1974. Okay. Hare Krishna. May devotees of Krishna Life Atlanta continue to distribute thousands of Srila Prabhupada's books for his divine pleasure. Bhakti Vikas Swami, Canterbury, 31 July 2022. Hare Krishna. Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, and Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
I've already got everything you need. The bag's on the chair.
I got to advertise it for Find Yourself.
And then there's a portable charger.